All right, man, peace. Over the course of this previous NBA regular season going into the playoffs, I made a series of videos in reference to the Minnesota Timberwolves and their top young player, that being Mr. Karl Anthony Towns, and what I perceived to be an obvious fissure between himself and the coach, Tom Thibodeau. I saw from the very beginning of last season that they just did not seem to have the right fit on that team, and that Karl Anthony Towns was a player with an alpha level of talent, but he does not have an alpha personality. He seems to be someone who's more concerned with being a media darling, a media celebrity, than being an actual dog on a basketball court. And that's going to lead to some consistent problems throughout his career if he does not adjust his outlook in regards to what his responsibilities are to his team and to his teammates. Because when he has all that talent, but he's not eager to lead, what's going to happen is they're going to bring in other players who may not be as talented as him, who want to lead, and they're going to look to him to assist in leading the team, and he's going to constantly come up short, as we saw in the playoffs this season against the Houston Rockets, where I basically called him a pussycat, because that's how he played. And now Mr. Jimmy Butler, who for all intents and purposes all across the NBA is known as what Stephen A. Smith will call a rough rider, is officially calling him out and stating that he wants to leave the team. And I think that there's more than one reason why he's saying this. I think that he's sticking up for his coach, Tom Thibodeau, who is in the midst of a proverbial custody battle with that franchise between himself and Karl Anthony Towns. I think that Karl Anthony Towns is eventually going to give the Minnesota Timberwolves front office an ultimatum of either him or me. It's occurred numerous times in the history of the NBA, particularly with the star player on the team no longer wanting to conform to some of the protocols of a rather oppressive head coach. It happened with Michael Jordan and Doug Collins. It happened with Magic Johnson. It happened with Larry Bird. Many great players have gotten their coaches fired, and I think that Karl Anthony Towns is going to try, or is in the process of trying to do the same thing. And Jimmy Butler is trying to stick up for his coach, and also he sees that even though he's probably 27, 28 years old, or 29 years old, however old he is, that there may be a sort of generation gap between himself and Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, because both of those cats are very, very submissive, and Jimmy Butler is very aggressive. You don't always have to be 15 or 20 years apart to feel like there's a difference in how you view the world, and I think that Jimmy Butler may be experiencing that with those two players. And according to reports, he wants to play with Kyrie Irving. So we'll see what happens with that. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Chi-Town we go. The Chicago Sun-Times is reporting that All-Star Jimmy Butler has no intentions of signing a contract extension with the Timberwolves because he is all fed up with the nonchalant attitude of his younger teammate, specifically Karl Anthony Towns. The Sun-Times is also reporting that Butler and Kyrie Irving have interest in joining forces in the Eastern Conference. Both players can become free agents next summer.
That means what? If you're a New York Knicks fan, look forward to possibly having Kyrie Irving and Jimmy Butler team up on the Knicks with Kristaps Porzingis. I would like to see that myself. It will provide some pretty exciting basketball for the New York metro area.
Stephen A., start with you here. What are you hearing about this?
Well, I haven't heard much about it, number one. Number two, I don't really believe it. Here's why.
Okay.
I'm not trying to say that Jimmy Butler doesn't have problems, because Jimmy Butler is a rough rider. He doesn't take any nonsense. He doesn't have a soft bone in his body. He's not backing up from anything or anyone. And he is the kind of person that he will get in your face and challenge you. And he doesn't give a damn if you're the young star of the team. He's going to challenge you. So I don't have any doubt that there have been some issues there with Karl Anthony Towns, especially how Karl Anthony Towns performed in the playoffs against the Houston Rockets.
Yes, he went from cat to pussycat.
Here's the problem. Both of them can be free agents in 2019. So you don't really have to worry about that at this particular moment in time. Unless you're looking to force yourself out of Minnesota right now, it really doesn't matter, because you're going to...
He may be trying to force himself out of Minnesota right now, Stephen A. Smith, but I think that even more likely than that, he's trying to light a fire under Karl Anthony Towns for this up-and-coming season to let him know, look, bro, take your focus off of Tom Thibodeau and what you think your beef is with him, and recalibrate it back on the focus that it needs to be on, which is yourself, because you played like a $2 hole in last season's playoffs against the Houston Rockets. You let our team down because you were softer than a damn ice cream cone on a summer day. That's what Jimmy Butler is basically telling Kitty Cat. Get back focused and forget Andrew Wiggins. That dude he just sleepwalks during the game. I don't even know why they signed him to that big contract. He has all that talent. He has $1 million talent, but he has $1,000 worth of verve and enthusiasm during the game.
You're going to be a free agent next summer. And so to sit up there and talk about how you're fed up with Karl Anthony Towns, I'm not going to go that far.
I believe it's Stephen A. Smith. I believe it, brother. I think that he's trying to light a fire under Kitty Cat, and I also think that he's standing up for his coach, because I believe that there's a lot more going on within the inner workings, the inner fabric of the Minnesota Timberwolves right now than we're being told.
I covered the Minnesota-Houston series. Obviously, Jimmy Butler had a great relationship with Jamal Crawford, who's one of the nicest people in the world. Karl Anthony Towns wasn't playing up to his capability. I have no doubt that frustrated them. But in the end, with both of them scheduled to potentially be in the free agent market in the summer of 2019, there's no reason to have that kind of attitude if you're about to play with one another next season. If Jimmy Butler was demanding a trade, I'd be more concerned about it. But with him looking forward to free agency in 2019, the bottom line is they're going to be playing together this season. I'm not saying that the story is false, but I got to hear from Jimmy Butler to believe it, because he's the kind of person that ain't going to shy away from expressing himself. It ain't going to be some leaked story about, oh my goodness, we're hearing this about Jimmy Butler. He's the kind of dude, Molly, that'll come on camera and tell you, look, this guy getting on my damn nerves. I'm sick of it. He's that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see what happens, Stephen A. Smith. I do believe that he's getting tired of Karl Anthony Towns. I have to admit, I won't say that I was quote-unquote disappointed with Karl Anthony Towns' performance in last season's playoffs, but it was a bit of a revelation that he would allow himself to come up that small. He did not show that he had that second burst of energy. He didn't have that second gas tank that you see from transcendent players in big moments. He pretty much just folded up.
Furthermore, if you're the Timberwolves and Jimmy Butler did feel that way, then you would certainly want him around Karl Anthony Towns. Because Jimmy Butler...
Would you? Are you sure? Maybe he's been getting on Karl Anthony Towns for the last season or so, and he sees that he cannot reach him. So at this point, this is a last-ditch effort to make it public, to, number one, try to light a fire under Karl Anthony Towns, but even more importantly, create a precedent that there are players on the Minnesota Timberwolves that are willing to side with Thibodeau as opposed to Pussycat.
Butler took a very different path to the NBA than Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns was the #1 overall pick in the draft and has backed that up, and was excellent in college and has been excellent every day of his life in the NBA, although...
He's been very good to borderline great, but this is going to be a very important season for Karl Anthony Towns. There's no doubt about that. I don't care how many photo shoots he wants to engage in with ESPN Magazine where he poses butt naked. I don't care how many times he wants to do that. I don't care how much he tries to court the celebrity life or how many Instagram models he dates. It's about what you do on the basketball court. And he's going to have to come up big in this season's playoffs, assuming that they make the playoffs.
Although people wanted more from him in the playoffs, of course, at times.
Not against Houston.
Jimmy Butler came out of nowhere. Jimmy Butler built himself into an NBA player.
And allegedly, supposedly, he's one of Michael Jordan's illegitimate sons. Allegedly. Even though nothing would shock me.
Through hard work. Jimmy Butler was at first, and then when he was in the NBA, was as a defensive stopper. It's hard to remember a guy with a reputation as a guy who you can bring in to try to shut a guy down because he works so hard, almost like a D-leaguer who's kind of made good, who then transformed himself into nearly a franchise player both ends of the floor.
I agree with that. He's one of the elite two-way players in the NBA.
In a league that is starved for two-way wings, because those are the best kind of players to have. Yes, better than point guards who can shoot the three or bigs who can space the floor. You want great two-way wings who can shoot it, drive, play defense, switch, etc. And that's Jimmy Butler. You know what I take away from it, though, Stephen A., when I hear he may want to wind up in the Eastern Conference? I think Kyrie Irving and what you hear about the Knicks. I think the Knicks, maybe Jim Dolan, selling the team. Knicks fans are very excited by those rumors, as they should be. It's the best.
Guys, Dolan denied that. Dolan denied that, right?
I understand.
Well, of course, he's going to deny that, Stephen A. Smith. He does not want to have his business made public. And he wants to make sure that he can make the most amount of money that he could possibly make by selling the franchise. So he wants to keep it under wraps. But hopefully he does sell the franchise, because it's time for the Knicks to be renovated from the inside out. They need some ownership that actually wants to push the envelope in regards to winning.
I understand, but those are the rumors for decades and decades. The best news that any Knicks fan has had, believe me, I know. I think Jimmy Butler, the issue with him to me, Stephen A., is I know he's good enough to be the third best player on a championship team, maybe the second, not the best.
No, the third best. I think that he'd be the third best player on a championship level team. If he was the second best player, the best player would have to be someone unbelievably transcendent like a Kevin Durant or LeBron James.
But
or maybe a Steph Curry.
On a team with Kyrie Irving and Kristaps Porzingis, he would only have to be the third best player on that team. So as the Knicks fan in me who looks for any little sliver of news, whether it's founded or unfounded, whether it's grounded in fact or not, wait, it's possible that the Knicks could wind up with Jimmy Butler and Kyrie Irving? Gets very excited.
Well, listen, I think the other thing to pay attention to here is that Jimmy Butler is the kind of guy that would embrace the challenge of going to a moribund franchise like the New York Knicks. Steve Mills, the president of basketball operations for the New York Knicks, was on my radio show with me in person last week. He proclaimed they're going to have enough money for max dollars. The key there is whether or not Porzingis is going to be healthy, because if he doesn't show up next season, late next season, after his nasty knee injury, and show that he's ready to go, then you don't have anything for Knicks fans, for a free agent rather, to look forward to playing in a Knicks uniform with.
Well, I have to disagree with you there, brother. They have the coach, David Fizdale, who for all intents and purposes has one of the better reputations all across the NBA as a player's coach. So we'll see. The verdict is going to be out on him as well. This up-and-coming season is going to be a referendum on Mr. David Fizdale. As we all know, in order to find out how truly great a coach it is that you have, it's going to be based on how much he can maximize great talent. All a great coach is a coach that can maximize the great talent that he has. So first, the Knicks have to bring in great talent. What would be a great success for him is if the Knicks can be a 500 team and possibly make the playoffs. That, to me, would be enough for me to give him Coach of the Year.
And you're not going to be able to attract a free agent for 2019. Not to mention, I don't know if they'll have enough money to get both a Kyrie and a Jimmy Butler. If the Knicks had enough money or could create enough money to attract both of them to New York City, I definitely think that's plausible, because those two guys are the type of dudes that would show up and embrace the challenge of being the face of the New York Knicks. They would do so without hesitation. But I don't know if that's going to happen. As it pertains to Minnesota, what I would say to you, Max and Molly, is this. Tom Thibodeau, you better watch himself. Tom Thibodeau.
Sir, I've been saying that for the longest time. I've done videos about it. Tom Thibodeau, to me, is one of the most overrated coaches of the last 20 years. I have no idea why he received the head coaching job with the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first place. I think that he coaches in an antiquated style. He engages in a bit too much verbal abuse of his players, and I think that it has caused Karl Anthony Towns to retreat into his shell and to play scared. And different type of players need different type of coaching. That's why it's very important for a great coach to have a psychology background so that he knows how to bring out the best in his players. But I've been making videos about this for a while in regards to Kitty Cat and Tom Thibodeau.
Tom Thibodeau is a great defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
It's nice that they re-signed Derrick Rose, a former Chicago Bull, under Thibodeau, that Jimmy Butler is there.
And that's a major red flag, too. That's something that coaches who are often at their wits' end will tend to do, which is bring in retreads from their old teams that oftentimes themselves never won the big one. And that's a red flag for me as well. What oftentimes marginal or just slightly above average head coaches will do is they'll bring in retreads from previous teams that they coached, players who they thought gave 100% effort on old teams that they coached, and even on the old team that the coach presided over, they never were able to win the big one. So you're going to bring on retreads onto your new team and hope that they're going to bring a boost of energy on the new team when they were unable to win the big one on the old team. And I've stated in some of the videos that I've made in regards to this issue that I think that Jimmy Butler is getting in the way of the advancement and the maturation of Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. But Tom Thibodeau is caught in a catch-22 because they gave him all this money and he needs immediate results, and he's not sure if those two young players have what it takes personality-wise to raise the overall level of play of that team. So just overall, it's a bad mix. It's a bad mix, and I think that they're going to end up blowing it up. If what Stephen A. Smith says is true, and Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns are free agents at the end of this up-and-coming NBA season, it would not shock me at all if both players left and Tom Thibodeau got fired. But I guarantee you that one of the conditions of Kitty Cat coming back to play for the Timberwolves is that Tom Thibodeau will have to be fired.
But how many people are clamoring to play for the Rough Rider coach that is Tibbs? That he's a great basketball mind, make no mistake about it. But he's a workhorse, completely and totally committed to everything basketball. And with today's generation of players, he's not the most attractive coach to play for.
Ding. In other words, as I've been saying for a very long time, he's a great defensive coordinator trying to be a head coach.
So losing a player the quality of Jimmy Butler could compromise Minnesota's plans. So I think we should all keep our eyes on that.
Stephen A., especially Butler, because he's seen as Thibodeau's guy.
Yes, right.
Exactly, sir. That's why I'm saying this is why he's doing what he's doing. This is why these reports are coming out. They did not come out of nowhere. What Jimmy Butler is trying to do is he's trying to levy a shot at Karl Anthony Towns so that he can let everyone know that I have Thibodeau's back.
Correct.
Especially Jimmy Butler. That would be devastating to Thibodeau and to the Minnesota franchise.
Listen, but as far as Butler, that's why they call it for next summer a free agent. Go where you want, live your best life. Coming up, Jake.
Yes, and Kitty Cat's going to do the same thing unless they fire Thibodeau. But anyway, peace.